Hello and welcome. Thank you for listening. My name is Sarah Baumert. I'm a yoga teacher, Feldenkrais practitioner, and host of the Sarah B. Yoga podcast. The Sarah B. Yoga podcast and my practice, Body Matter, is an interdisciplinary learning space where we explore the many ways that movement can help facilitate body acceptance and awareness, reduce pain and stress, regulate the nervous system, and build strength and ease. My teaching plays with the synthesis of Feldenkrais awareness through movement lessons, traditional yoga asana, creative imagery, breathing exercises, self-massage, and a compassionate mindset to help you feel a greater sense of ease and comfort in yourself. Sarah B. Yoga and Body Matter have a lot of other program offerings. These podcasts are just a taste of my teaching. Each week I teach a range of online classes, including a gentle yoga class, a level 2 class for more advanced students, and Feldenkrais classes with monthly themes, anatomy lessons, and Q&A sessions for more in-depth study. I have 2 new online series offerings for the fall. A Feldenkrais series titled Coming to Your Senses, an exploration of the spaces of the eyes, the mouth, jaw, ears, vocal and breathing apparatus. And my second course, Wakeful Body, the blending of yoga and Feldenkrais on Monday nights. As one student recently described Monday nights, that felt like I just gave myself a massage. So these fall classes will be a continuation of some fan favorite stretching sequences that incorporate bolsters and other props to enhance the poses. There is still plenty of time to join these courses live or via the course recordings. You can find more information about these offerings in the show notes. Okay, on to today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Hello and welcome to the Sarah B. Yoga podcast. This podcast is an intersection of my yoga teaching and my training in the Feldenkrais method. These classes are a mix of yoga, Feldenkrais awareness through movement, self-massage, breathing exercises, movement puzzles, and a compassionate mindset to help you feel a greater sense of ease and comfort in yourself. Today's class is a 75-minute live class blending yoga and the Feldenkrais method. In this class, we push and pull against and away from the props to help free the hip and shoulder joints. Please have a looped strap, a blanket, and a block for today's practice. For my schedule of live online classes on Zoom and my self-paced yoga and Feldenkrais courses that do include video, you can find more about those at my website, body-matter.com. Okay, let's get on to class. Okay, welcome everyone. So let's grab our props here before we come to the floor onto our back. We're going to make a loop in the strap. So if you have a loopable strap, make a loop in it and make sure it's a tight loop so that when you have a hold of the loop section, you can pull it apart, right? And it won't slip out and get bigger. And you can make the loop about the width of your shoulders. We'll put it around the legs first, and then we'll put it around the forearms after that. So those of you just arriving, we're just making a loop in our strap. That's a tight loop. That's about shoulder width. Great. And then you can set that aside. Take your time with that. Next, we'll make a roll with our blanket. So I have a Mexican blanket here folded in quarters. So it's a larger rectangle. And then I'm going to grab the fringe end, the short end, and roll that up so that you have a cylinder, the same kind of cylinder we've been using for this whole series. Yeah, great.
Okay, and then you'll want to have your block also handy at the ready once we lie down. We won't use any of these things right away, but have them ready. And then we're going to lie down, and I'm going to suggest that you have your feet off of your mat, just so there's a little bit more slipperiness where your feet are for this very first little bit we'll do. So come onto your back. If it's comfortable for you to have your legs long, do that. Bring your arms down alongside the body. And just feel the natural opening of your legs. Sense the direction that the right toes point and the left toes point. Feeling the backs of your heels, maybe the sides of your heels, the area of the heels that meet the floor. And then start to draw your attention to your two legs, the length of your legs from your heels all the way up to where you feel in your mind or in your body is the end of your leg. Is it the hip joint? Is it higher than that? Is it a little bit ambiguous where the leg might end? Just getting a sense of not only the length of the legs, but also just their general feeling, how it feels to have the floor taking the support of your legs. Any differences that you notice? And begin to invite your breath a little bit deeper into the abdomen so that as you inhale, there's some movement in your lower belly, directing that movement all the way down towards your hip joints. As if the legs can somehow be affected by your breathing. And we know that the movement in the belly is not air coming into the belly, but it is a response of the diaphragm pressing downward. And so similar to how last week we were playing with shaping the breath up towards one shoulder, in kind of a similar way, can you breathe in and think of directing the movement, the pressure, the attention towards your hip joints when you breathe in. It doesn't have to be forced. It can be partly in your imagination. And then just bring your hands to the points on the front of the pelvis, the bony point, so your palms can just rest there. Slowly begin to elongate your right leg, not by lifting the right leg off the floor, but it's like a friend had your ankle and they just gently tugged your leg a little bit longer. Now, it could just be a millimeter longer, and then bring it back and do that with the second leg. And just start to go back and forth, lengthening one leg. So you may feel that the heel slides a little bit on the floor, and then lengthening the other leg. Noticing the movement that's happening underneath your hands. So in order to really let that leg get longer, allow your pelvis to shift. Feeling how one hip point draws higher in the direction of your head as the other hip point moves away from the head. And you could do this exploration quite slowly. If it's really comfortable, you could try doing it a little bit quicker. But noticing how all of your back surface is changing contact. What's happening across your ribs, how your ribs meet the floor? Is that shifting when one leg gets a little bit longer? Sensing what's happening through your side body, in your waist. As you do this, can you continue with that very spacious breath down in the direction of your hips? Good. Let that rest. Bend your knees and stand your feet, and go ahead and take your hands off of your pelvis so your arms can be alongside your body. Now tip the pelvis in such a way that your lower back arches away from the floor, feeling the abdomen come forward and even maybe towards your thighs. And roll the pelvis in the other direction, bringing the lower back towards the floor, feeling the pubic bone move towards your chest. Moving back and forth, rolling or rocking the pelvis in this way. Never lifting or picking the pelvis up, but just feeling that the weight shifts more towards the tail end of the pelvis, and then the weight shifts towards your lower back and the top of the pelvis. And just find an easy way to breathe with this. You might notice that organically you're coordinating the breath in some way. Notice how your feet meet the floor as you do this. Do you push and pull with your feet? Is that how you're powering the movement of the pelvis? Or is it more coming from your belly and your back? Noticing the movement that's traveling up your spine into your head. How your chin is moving towards or away from your chest. And if that's not happening, that's fine. Just take note of any kind of tension or holding you might sense in your chest, your shoulders, your neck. So when the lower back leaves the floor, can you feel the chin coming a little bit towards your chest? And when the lower back moves into the floor, can you feel the chin move slightly away from the chest? Good. Soften the jaw. It's a nice moment to invite the face, the eyes, the forehead to relax. Great. Okay, let that rest. Just feel your pelvis settle in a neutral place and take a hold of the sides of your mat. Your arms are alongside or down alongside the body. Grab the edges of the mat and push the mat away from your head. As you do that, let it tilt the pelvis so that your lower back comes into the floor. And maintain the push of the mat away from your head. Just for another breath. And then let it go and allow your body to bounce back to where it was. Do that a few times now with your hands. Push the mat away from your head. Allow the pelvis to tilt so the low back comes into the floor. And then let it go and bounce back. And you can do it a little bit quicker. And the least amount of effort that you need in your arms and your hands to make this little rocking or bounce happen. Feeling the kind of push up towards your head that you feel. As if you're getting taller. Every time you push the mat away, the spine gets taller in the direction of the head. Great. All right. Let that rest. Now you're going to need your strap and your block. We're going to take the strap around the thighs near the knees. And you'll want your feet to be in around a hips distance position. So knees and feet are in line with one another. So if you need to tighten the strap a little bit, you can do that. So again, the strap is around the thighs, closer to the knees, and the feet are standing. Once you're in that position, begin to activate the legs out into the strap as if you want to break the strap or stretch the strap wider. And feel what's happened with your lower back and your pelvis. Has it shifted positions at all? What organically happened when you started to push out into the strap? Now continue to press the legs wide into the strap and slowly start to peel your tail, your sacrum, your low back away from the floor. And as you're lifting the pelvis, think of your thigh bones reaching in the direction of your knees tracking over your toes and continually pushing out into the strap. Lifting up into a bridge pose that feels appropriate at this point in the class. And as you take the pelvis higher, can you think of reaching your tail towards the back of your knees or towards the back of your calves? So there's an active awareness of the tail end of the spine. Tail reaches to help lengthen the lower back, and the legs are still pushing out into the strap. Right. You may feel a bit more engagement of the outer seam of the legs, the glutes. Now notice the vertebrae highest up on your back that is off the floor. And start there and just bring that vertebrae back into the floor. Keep pushing out into the strap and just see if you can feel one by one that you can lower down. Keep pushing out into the strap until the pelvis is all the way to the floor. And then just let go of that press of the legs out into the strap, but keep the strap there. Good. Again, press out into the strap. Some of us just got here, got the strap situated. So one more time, press out into the strap and feel the feet on the floor. Try not to lift your toes or curl the toes in. So using all the toe pads. Slowly peel the tail, the sacrum, and one vertebra at a time, lifting towards a bridge pose. Move the thighs in the direction of the knees. Actively reach your tail towards the back of your legs, the back of your calves. Great. And see if you can really activate the legs in this way of helping to create some length in the belly and the front of the hips. And very slowly lower down all the way. You're going to keep the strap there, but grab your block and put it between your knees. So it kind of depends on exactly how wide you had your knees. I'm putting the medium width between the knees, and I can keep the strap just as it is, but you might need to loosen the strap a little bit to put a block between your knees. So now we have something to press in towards. You still want your feet hips distance and your knees in line with your feet. So now push inward towards the block, engaging the inner thighs. And same thing, curl your tail away from the floor, the sacrum, and then the lumbar spine. But as you get a little bit higher, really think of taking your thigh bones in the direction of your knees. So there's a lengthening and opening at the front of your hip joints. And feel that sensation of hugging inward. I'm not saying too much about your shoulders, but if you want to, rock one shoulder and then the other shoulder a little bit more underneath you, now that we're on this third bridge pose, you can start to engage the arms a little bit more as we wake up this back bend up towards the chest. Continue to hug the block. Reach your tail longer away from the head as you lower all the way to the floor. Great. So now you have this strap block set up. So making sure that this is possible for you to push out into the strap and hug the block. And just very slowly start to go back and forth between those two. Hugging the block and pushing out into the strap. And you might close your eyes as you do this and notice if your lower back is changing its contact with the floor. I'm going to ask you to not brace anything in your belly. You may have training to, really stabilize in some way. For right now, I'll ask you to not brace or hold your belly and see if these actions of the legs of pushing out and then drawing in, how they affect your pelvis and your low back. Continue to do this. I'm going to add a coordination with your breathing. So when you push out into the strap, take a breath in. And when you hug towards the block, breathe out. And when you push out into the strap, breathe in. When you hug the block, breathe out. Great. And now this might already be happening for you. If it's not, see if you can find it. As you push in towards the block and you breathe out, can you tip your pelvis so the low back comes towards the floor? And as you push out into the strap, breathe in and let your lower back arch slightly. This can be very small. Hug the block, breathe out, lower back comes towards the floor. Push out into the strap, breathe in, let the lower back arch slightly. Great. Okay, let that release. Take the block and the strap out. And find your blanket. That blanket right alongside the right side of you. So it's really snug right next to you, touching the outer part of your right hip. And then just draw your right knee in toward your chest. Let the low back drop into the floor. Take your left leg long on the floor. Bring that left leg into a neutral rotation. So the knee points up, flex the left ankle. I'll hold your right knee with just your right hand and widen the right knee to the right. And you should feel like the blanket's catching the outside of your right hip, right leg a little bit. Flex your right ankle. So you pull the right toes towards the knee. And go ahead and bring your left hand to your left hip point in the front. So as the right knee widens to the right, try not to let your pelvis tip to the right. Okay, so this is bus stop number 1. You could stay here. I'm going to have you push the leg towards the blanket, not with your hand, but your actual leg is pressing down towards the blanket. And if you're doing that, think of lifting your inner right heel to the ceiling. So you could stay there or take your right ankle to bring your right foot into tree pose. And you'll do the same thing in this tree pose position. Press the right leg down towards the blanket. Don't let the pelvis roll to the right though. So your hands could be on hip points, keeping the hip points at the same altitude. Yeah, great. Good. Let that release. Bring that right foot back to the floor. Go ahead and grab your blanket. Just shift it over to the left. Just bring it really snug up towards your left leg. Take your right leg long and draw the left knee in towards the chest. Flex the left ankle. Flex both ankles. So your right leg is firm, grounding downward towards the floor. Left hand has left knee and widen the left knee to the left. Feel the outer part of your left leg meet the blanket and press down actively into the blanket. And simultaneously try to lift the left heel towards the ceiling. So you can stay there, or if you want to try the similar actions in the tree pose position, bring the sole of the left foot to the inner right thigh. Pressing the left leg down into the blanket. And if you're in tree pose, the left heel, it stays connected to the right leg, but the left heel tries to lift to the ceiling. Great. Let that release. You should have felt the glutes engage a little bit there. Stay on both feet. You can just push the blanket gently aside. Now cross your right ankle in front of your left thigh for the figure 4 position. Keep that active flexion of the right ankle so your toes are pulling toward your right knee. And now try to lift your right ankle away from your left thigh. It's not going to happen. And if you're to do that, you're trying to keep the right knee wide. But just feel a little activation there. Yeah, good. Now pick up your left foot, thread the right hand through the legs and interlace the fingers behind the left leg. And just take a moment to draw this position of the legs in. And see if you can continually stay active with your right leg. So you're moving the right knee away from the right shoulder. Remember that sensation of breathing in, expanding the abdomen so low, deep into the pelvis that it starts to affect the hip joints. Good. Okay, so we'll stay in this figure 4 position. Just bring your left foot back to the floor, release your hands, and take your left arm up alongside the ear. Doesn't have to be right next to it, but the left arm is overhead with the left palm facing up. As you breathe in, let your legs tip to the right. You can roll onto the big toe edge of the left foot. And as you breathe out, bring the legs back to the center. I'm taking that a few times. Breathing in, tipping the legs to the right, and feeling the left thigh bone reach away from the left hip. And you breathe out and you come back to the middle. Good. And so we have the left arm overhead so that you can start to feel as your legs tip to the right. Can you feel that sense of length coming into the left side body, the left side of the chest? And then invite a active reaching of the left arm as well. When you start to meet that fullest length through your left side. Good. Next time you come back to center, bring your left arm down, uncross the right ankle, stand the right foot, cross your left ankle in front of the right thigh, and just pause here for a moment. Now, this time, push your ankle into your thigh first. Your left ankle is pushing into your thigh to help widen your left knee. And see if you can feel the engagement that does happen in your hip to do that. And now try to take your left ankle away from your right thigh. Feel these different isometrics in the position. Pick up your right foot, and hands can come behind the right thigh or right shin, and slowly start to draw the legs in. Try not to just let the left leg be passive here, though. The outer left hip widens to the left to help widen the left knee to the left. Yeah, you can also use your strap at this moment if you want to take the strap around the right leg, if that makes it easier to take a hold of. And take at least one breath where you're really focusing on expanding the belly and looking for the breath movement to approach the pelvis and the hip joints. Good. Let go with your hands. Bring your right foot down. Keep the figure four cross. Take your right arm overhead on the floor. As you breathe in, tilt your legs to the left. You can roll to the big toe edge of the right foot and actively reach the right thigh a little away from the right hip. And your exhale brings your knees back to center. So breathing in, look for that place where the whole right side, from right thigh up to right armpit, all the way out through the arm, you can find that sense of length. And exhale, you come to the center. Doing it with timing it with your own breathing. Yeah, see if you can keep your right shoulder on the floor. So there's a twist that's happening. Great. All right. Uncross the legs. Go ahead and grab your blanket roll. We're going to slide the blanket roll underneath the low back. We did a little bit of this last week. So you're under the lumbar. You're going to be in an arched position so the pelvis tips towards the floor. And we're working with this figure four shape in a slightly different way now. So first, take a big belly breath. Feel what it's like to take a belly breath in this shape with the blanket underneath your back. And pick up your right foot, cross your right ankle over your left thigh. And then we're going to tip this whole position onto the left side. So you're going to roll onto your left side. The blanket roll will be under the waist. And you're going to try to bring that whole leg positioning up as high towards that blanket as you can. The sole of your right foot is standing, right? The sole of your right foot's on the floor. Your right knee's pointed more towards the ceiling. Settle in to feel the blanket and the left side waist, just yielding. Bring your right thumb to your right hip crease. Let the right fingers and hand be on the outer right hip. Guide this right hip crease downward away from your chest. Allow your ribs, your chest, and your head to roll to the right so that you can start to see the ceiling. Actively push the sole of your right foot into the floor, engaging the right hip to help move the right knee away from your chest. So your right knee might want to be coming closer and closer towards your chest, and you're just gently feeling how the hip can help that. You could put your left hand on the inner right knee and gently guide it away. If you choose to do that, be really gentle with the hand so that it's not the arm and the hand that is moving your leg into the external rotation. Still look for the work in the hip so that you become strong in the end range. So the right foot pushes into the floor. Good. Slowly roll back onto your left side. Uncross the right leg. So you just stack your right side over your left. Roll back onto your back. Blanket under the lumbar. Cross the left ankle over the right. Find that figure four position. And from there, tip your whole self over to the right. So the blanket's under the right waist. And then go ahead and use your hands and kind of bring the leg structure up closer towards your chest if that's possible. And you're trying to stand the sole of the left foot. Yeah, great. Left thumb can come into the hip crease. And take a moment here on your side. Push the left foot straight down. Use your left thumb and your hand to guide the outer left hip away from your chest, away from your head. And then you can slowly start to turn your belly, your ribs, and your head towards the ceiling without losing the connection of the left foot pushing into the floor. Now you have the blanket underneath your back, so you probably haven't forgotten about that. But it might keep you from twisting as deep, or it's keeping our lumbar in this slight arch position. So just listening to that, not pushing it. But seeing if as you stretch this left leg, you can actually keep the left leg engaged, pushing the foot into the floor. Great. Slowly roll back onto your right side, uncross that left leg. Just stay on your left side for a moment. Stand your left hand in front of you like a push-up position. Lift yourself up about halfway and then slide that blanket roll up so that when you lie down, it will be on your mid ribs to lie back, thoracic spine on the roller. So it's in the upper back now. Great. Pelvis on the floor. let your arms come overhead. If you can grab the edges of your mat, if you're far enough down on your mat, you could work with that a little bit for this one, or you can just have the arms overhead for right now. Take a moment to let the back appreciate this, settle into this. Good. Let your head roll just very gently side to side. It could be very small. As you take the head to one side and the other, just invite the muscles in the front of your neck to soften. Great. Now, head comes back to the center. Cross your right thigh over your left. So you're crossing more near the tops of the thighs. Breathe in, let your knees tilt to the right. Slowly. And breathing out, bring your knees back to center. We'll do that a few times. So slightly different approach with the legs and the rollers under the upper back now. So really feeling every time that the knees tilt to the right, you're allowing a back bend to happen. You're allowing the front of the spine from your pubic bone all the way to the neck gets longer. Great. And again, see if you can keep your left shoulder. It's not going to be on the floor, but keep your left shoulder from rolling to the right with your legs. So as your knees tilt to the right, give a little reach through your left arm. Good. When you come back to the center, uncross the legs and just switch sides. Left thigh crosses over right. Let the knees tilt to the left. Take a breath in. Feel the whole front of you from pubic bone up towards the neck get longer. And slowly taking a few of these with your breath, inhaling as the legs tilt and exhaling as the legs come back to the center. Great. Next time you come to the center, uncross the legs, interlace the fingers behind the back of the head, let your elbows widen. Take a breath in, expanding the chest wide outward towards armpits, towards elbows. And then let your knees tilt to either side, rolling to your side to come off of your blanket. Go ahead and set your blanket aside. We'll come up to, you can bring that blanket up towards the top of the mat. We will use it, as well as our strap, our loop strap, and your block. So have all of that up towards your hands as you come up to hands and knees. So first, starting in hands and knees position, hands right underneath shoulders. From there, walk your knees back about 10 inches or so. Great. Planting the hands firmly, start to pull the pelvis back. Allow your head to drop so your ears and your upper arm bones are aligned with one another. Your forehead could come to the floor, moving back towards dog in prayer. Good. Now push the floor down and away from you with your hands. Pressurize the pads of the fingers into the floor and lift the base of your wrist. So the forearms are lifting to the ceiling. Yeah, and maybe you have a sense of a memory of the blanket right behind your heart. Okay, slowly come up for a moment. Just want to make sure that if you can have more distance between your hands and your knees, you do. So we're not way back here in child's pose. You maybe were doing that because you needed to or for a reason. What we're looking for is for the thigh bones to be vertical. So the pelvis is stacked over the knees. This does bring more weight into the arms and requires a little bit more strength in the shoulders. So you might have your pelvis slightly farther back towards your heels, more in the direction of child's pose. But if you can, see if you can have the pelvis over the knees. That's right. And then the chest, allowing the chest to sink. Pressurize the finger pads, lift the forearms. Okay, from this place, don't move your hands. Begin to round the back. So curl your tail down, draw the lower belly up. Let the very center of the back, the mid-spine, lift towards the ceiling. Let your head drop. You're coming into a cat spine, a long cat spine position. Feel the active drawing of the tail down and forward, as if you had a long monkey tail, and that tail goes through the legs and comes up to touch your nose. And now slowly reach back into dog and prayer. So uncurl the tail, take the pelvis back, find the length through the shoulders. The forehead might come to the floor. Right, one more time, come into a long cat spine. You could think of initiating at the low belly, bringing the pubic bone towards the navel, letting the tail curl down. Imagine that my hand is right in the center of your back and you're trying to push my hand up to the ceiling. Great. Keep that cat spine. Walk your hands back so they're right underneath your shoulders. Arms are vertical now. Now use the arms. Push the floor away, widen the shoulder blades, and continue to imagine my hand is right there on your mid back and you're pushing my hand towards the ceiling. Great. Inhale, come to neutral spine. Okay, take a moment to rest back in child's pose. Rest your arms, rest your hands. Great. Come back up to your hands and your knees. Okay, you're going to grab your blanket. That blanket's going to be out in front of you, and grab your block. Okay, so our elbows will be on the blanket. You'll be holding the block on its widest width between the hands. Yeah, like so. With elbows on the blanket. So the block won't be on the floor. Your forearms are kind of hovering off the floor. Make sure your elbows are about shoulder distance. Now walk your knees back a couple of inches. We're moving towards a dog and prayer variation. So again, we want to look for that positioning where the thigh bones are more or less vertical. Okay, before we get too deep into it though, I'm going to talk about the shoulders. So right now, don't push into the block with your hands. Actually think of pulling away from the block. And right now, that might not feel that difficult. Like you could maybe open the hands and drop the block. We're not thinking of breaking at the wrists though. Okay, so next step is to bend the elbows so that your fingertips point towards the ceiling. And continue to think about pulling your hands away from the block. Yeah, that's going to create some external rotation. Yeah, so you could stay here, or to extend the shoulders a little bit more, take your pelvis back, bring your chest towards the floor, bring your forehead either onto the blanket roll or onto the block. And the deeper you go into dog and prayer, the harder it's going to feel to pull the hands away from the block. They're going to want to push inward to the block. See if you can resist that. So pull the hands away. Again, finding strength in the end range. So if you need to back out of it a half an inch or so, and then pull the hands away from the block. That's just an activation cue. Great. Now slowly start to walk your knees forward. Set the block down. Move that blanket aside. Okay, take the block now and put it between your thighs. It's probably its most narrow width near the upper thighs. Plant the hands under the shoulders. Without actually rotating your hands, think as though you're corkscrewing the hands into the floor in an external rotation position. So if you did actually rotate the hands, the right fingers would turn to the right, the left fingers would turn to the left. So bend your elbows a little bit and just think of finding that slight corkscrew action, letting it come all the way up into the upper arms and shoulders. Maintain that, turn the toes under, hug the block with the inner thighs, and press back towards down dog. And go ahead and keep a slight bend in your knees. The upper inner thighs are trying to push the block back and up. Like you want to catapult the block up towards the top of the wall that's behind you. And that action, you may feel it starts to tilt the pelvis a little bit, lifts the sitting bones. Yeah, and go with that, keeping your arms quite active. Push the floor down and away from you. And remember that slight corkscrew action in the arms. Nice. And then using the legs pull some of the weight out of the arms. And slowly start to walk your hands back to your feet. Now, once the weight is in your feet, go ahead and slip that block out from between the legs. Stay here in Uttanasana. Let the arms hang, let the head hang. Firm the feet into the floor and pull your feet away from one another as if you had a strap around your legs. And so pull the feet like you want to break your mat in half with your feet. Make sure it's not a twisting of the ankle or a bending at the ankle, that the soles of the feet stay planted and they just try to pull the mat wide. Great. Keep that action, pulling the mat apart right to left, and breathe in, come up to a flat back. The hands can come up to the hips. Great. Breathe out here. And inhale, come all the way up to stand. Great. Okay. Grab your block. And if you don't have a block, you can use a book. We're going to step up on this block. Do a little bit of one leg balance work. So go ahead and step your right foot onto the block. And so your left leg is going to hang freely. And bring your hands to your front hip points. Okay, now your left leg is free, right? So there's no block underneath it. Can you let the left side of your pelvis drop so your left foot comes closer to the floor? Yeah. Now, using your right hip, pull that left leg up. See if the left hip point can get higher than the right. And you're going to go back and forth like that. Your right leg stays long and strong. Your right hip is actually what's doing the work here to take your left leg so it's shorter and taller. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a little bit of balance work. So if you need, you could have a finger at a wall. And the right hip, we're looking to fatigue that right hip a bit. And you can really think about it as if you're trying to get as tall on the hip as you can. When you think of lifting that left leg higher. That's it. Good. Okay. Is the right leg a little bit fatigued? Okay, I've got some thumbs up. Okay, let's go to the other side. Step the left foot onto the block. So bring your hands to those hip points. First, feel what it's like to have them at equal altitude. If you can, bring your eyes out at the horizon. So you're not looking down when you do this. You're looking for a tall spine. And then let that right leg get longer to the floor. So the right hip point drops. And then lift it up. And go back and forth like this. We're really doing some side bending in the ribs as well. So a strong left foot pressing into the block. A long left knee. And feeling how you can really get tall on the left hip, moving through all this range in the standing position. And again, we're looking to fatigue the left hip to get a little stronger here. Great. Okay. Come back to the first side. Step onto the block with that right foot. Bring your hands to your front hip points. See that they're at the same altitude. Good. Balancing here, bringing the left knee towards the chest. Take a hold of the left knee with your left hand. And keep pressing down into the block with the right foot, feeling the roots of the right leg push down so that you actually get taller on the right hip. Great. If you have your balance here, keep your pelvis facing forward as you open the left knee to the left. Just like we did when we were lying on our back. Good. Bring the left knee forward and lower that down. Switching, so left foot's on the block. Bring the hands to the hip points. First, feel that the two hip points are equal altitude. Bring your right knee in, holding the right knee with the right hand. And then push down through the left foot. And see if you can feel the sense of getting taller on the left hip, like you're lifting the belly off of the left hip. And if you have your balance, you can open that right knee to the right. Good. That's right. And when the right knee opens to the right, we're trying to maintain a straightforward pelvis. Great. Exhale, come back to center and release that foot down. Okay, set your block. Actually, grab your block since we are using our block today. Grab your block, put it between your legs. So 2 feet on the floor. Hug the block slightly. Feel the tail rooting. Breathe in and reach the left arm overhead. Bending the elbow and bring your left hand to the right temple area. Great. Yeah, unlocking the knees here. Now let your head start to tilt over to the right. And the weight of your head drops into your hand, into your left hand. Your right arm just gets to be hanging here. Your left elbow can direct itself back and a little towards the ceiling. Good. The right side ribs yield. Good. Inhale, bring your head back to the center and just switch over arms. So left arm goes down, right arm comes up and over the head to the left temple. Easy jaw. Feel the space behind the head. Let the head drop to the left into your hand. Good. And if you can, the right elbow moves back slightly. This left arm just hangs. Good. Slowly come back up to center. Okay, find your strap. You can keep this block between the legs. So waddle over to find your strap. And so if you have the loop in your strap, you're going to take your arms behind your back. And that loop is going to go around your forearms, close to your wrists. That's right. Your palms are facing one another. Have a slight bend in your elbows. And then just look forward out at the horizon. Push your forearms out into the strap. As you do that, hug the shoulder blades towards the spine. Breathing in, expand your chest. Feel the top of the sternum floating towards the chin. Maybe as you push out into the strap, you can start to float your arms up, back and up away from the body. If you begin to do that, don't let it push your head forward and your chin down. So quite the opposite. As your arms move back, allow your chin to float up away from the chest. And the top of the sternum is chasing your chin. Great. Good. Slowly let that release. Take that block out from between your legs. Now you won't use the loop. You will still use the strap. So hold the strap behind your back. Turn your palms so they face you. And you can walk your hands closer to one another. That will be more challenging for the shoulders. If you want more space for the shoulders, take your hands farther apart. Bend your knees a little bit and do a little wag of your tail side to side. Just free up the tail. Make sure it's not curled under, tucked under too much. Yeah, and then just gently let that right and left wag of the tail come to a pause. So there's just a sense of the tail hanging down. You're welcome to keep a nice bend of your knees and start to pull the strap apart with your hands, slight bend of the elbows again. As your hands pull the strap apart, take your upper arm bones towards one another, the shoulder blades towards the spine. And it's almost like the shoulder blades press the chest forward. As the chest comes forward, the head can start to drop back. The sternum chases the chin. You move into the standing back bend. Good. Great. Exhale, let that release. Set the strap aside. Come on up to the top of your mat. And just slowly let your arms hang, roll down, letting your head drop, rolling down through the spine, landing in Uttanasana. Give your head a little shake no. Bend your knees so that you can plant your hands and step your feet back into one more downward facing dog. Soften the jaw. You might turn your head right and left again. Great. Those look great. All right. Slowly lower your knees down. Okay, let's grab our blanket. We're going to do a little nice release for the neck before we get into Shavasana. So take your blanket back behind you. We'll lie down so that the blanket roll is right underneath the neck. And the blanket roll might feel slightly too big for your neck. You can kind of see what your preference is. You want to wedge the blanket roll between the top of your shoulders and the very base of your skull. So it's taking up all the negative space between the neck and the floor that's normally there. And then once you're there, you can walk your shoulder blades one at a time down away from the blanket. For me, I like to have just a little bit more pressure, more at the base of the skull area. And again, you can really play with exactly how big this blanket is, right where you have the pressure to feel support. Soften the jaw just by opening the mouth slightly. Let the eyes close. Take a few breaths to simply sense the heavy weight of your head. Begin a very gentle rocking of your pelvis, lifting the lower back, arching the spine. As you do that, see if you can feel your chin gets pulled slightly towards the chest. And then bring the lower back towards the floor. As you do that, feel your chin move away from the chest. So this can be small, and there's no effort in your neck. As little effort as possible in the neck. The head is just moving from this skeletal pull, responding to the movement of the pelvis. Great. Continue that gentle rocking of the pelvis and just turn your head to the right 5 or 10 degrees. So you feel the pressure underneath the right occiput. The movement of your pelvis, again, can be very small, and you can start to use your feet as well, pushing a little bit with your feet and then pulling a bit with your feet. And keep the rocking going. Roll your head through center. Easy jaw, relaxed eyes. Roll your head to the left, 5 degrees, maybe 10 degrees. So you feel a nice point of pressure. Keeping the head heavy as you continue this gentle rocking. And bringing the head to center. Let the rocking quiet down until it comes to a pause. If you like the way that this blanket feels underneath your neck, you can stay here for Shavasana. Otherwise, slip it out, bring the back of the head to the floor. Slowly lengthen your legs and grab whatever you need for final rest. And just letting your eyes close as you take a view inward of this slightly shifted, jostled body. Feeling the sense of weight of your eyes, the eyes sinking downward towards the back of the head. Softness in the skin of your face, around your cheeks, back towards your jaw. And then slide your awareness into the interior of each of your palms, as if your brain is nestled into this hand cradle on the left and right side of you. Feeling the center of your palms soften, melt. Feel the warmth of your skin, of the right and left palm. Just feeling the heat in your hands. Feel the coolness of the room surrounding the heat of your hands. See what you notice in your palms, at your fingers and fingertips. The fascial layer, the blood, the lymph. You may feel a swirling kind of movement at your fingertips. Start to breathe just a little bit more deeply. Just the smallest amount, directing your diaphragm down towards your pelvis, with this sensation that the movement of your diaphragm may give you an awareness of your hip joints. That pressure of the diaphragm on the low belly organs. The low belly organs are neighbors. Some of them live within the pelvis, deep bowl of the pelvis. Just right there, meeting your hip joints. Imagining this flow moving from your belly down front of the hip joints, down the legs to your feet, like little rivers, streams running down your legs. Great. And then just gently curl the fingers a little bit inward. You can bring the hands to your belly, bend your knees. And when you're ready, roll to one side. And make your way up to a comfortable seat. Bringing the palms together. May you be free of inner and outer harm. May you be happy and peaceful. May you be healthy and strong. And may you care for yourself joyfully. Take a breath in. Exhale. Namaste.
Are you enjoying this podcast? I've chosen to offer these audio recordings freely for over 15 years. I do this because research shows yoga, yoga nidra, and Feldenkrais to be valuable practices, those which I would like to share widely. Dana, the Buddhist practice of generosity, has always been a pillar of my business. And more generally, Dana is the inclination to give without expecting any form of repayment. It does, however, take a fair amount of time, effort, and cost to maintain and keep the podcasts available. If you feel you've benefited from what you've learned from these classes, then please do consider making a contribution towards the maintenance and upkeep of the classes. It will help ensure that I can continue to offer the podcast classes freely and keep generating new material. Give what you can. Give what feels good. If it's too little, it won't feel good. If it's too much, it won't feel good. Links to support the show monetarily can be found in the show notes. And other ways to give include sharing the podcast with others, leaving a 5-star rating and review, or just sending me an email with how the classes have affected you. Thanks so much.